Isn't it true that cats fly? Would this be a simple proposition or a compound one? Or if I say, I will go to bed early if and only if I finish my homework. Would this be a simple proposition or a compound one? Or if I say, the fish in my aquarium is sky blue. Would it be simple or compound? So how can we determine if propositions are simple or compound? Well, in this video we're going to look at that, but in detail. So please pay close attention. Let's get started. It's simple. A simple proposition is a complete idea that can't be divided into smaller parts. For example, it's raining. This is a simple proposition. Or if I say, cats meow. This is a simple proposition, and in fact, it's true. So let's say its truth value is true. But for example, if I say, 8 is a prime number, is this still a simple proposition? Well, it turns out yes. 8 is a prime number is still a simple proposition. It's just that in this case, it will be false, right? So we're going to say that the truth value of this proposition is false, but it's still a simple proposition. As you can see, simple propositions are direct statements, true or false, that don't have connectors. On the other hand, a compound proposition is one that is formed by joining two or more simple propositions using connectors. Logical connectors such as and or not, if, then, and if, and only if are used. These are some examples of compound propositions. Today it is raining and it is cold. This is a compound proposition since we have the logical connector and I study for the exam or I go out to play. In this case, the logical connector is or. The dog is not white. Pay attention here, because the not changes the original idea. So in logic, it is considered a compound proposition. If I study a lot, then I will pass. When you see if, then, it means that it is a compound proposition. And finally, a number is even if and only if it is divisible by 2. The same. When you see if and only if, it means that it is a compound proposition. It is worth noting that in some texts, simple propositions are called atomic, and compound propositions are called molecular. It makes sense, right? Well, let's continue. And now we're ready to solve some exercises. Let's put an S in front of the proposition if it's a simple proposition, and a C if the proposition is compound. If we have a compound proposition, we will also underline the logical connectors. So come on, let's do it little by little so it's very clear to you. Exercise number 1. The number 5 is odd and 8 is even. Is this a simple proposition or a compound one? Very good. This is a compound proposition, so we put a C. Now we also have to underline the logical connector, which in this case is and. Done. Simple, right? Let's go to exercise number 2, which says, water boils at 80 degrees Celsius. Is this a simple proposition or a compound one? Perfect. This is a simple proposition, so we write an as. But here it's important to clarify something. Is this proposition really simple? But its truth value is false. That is, we already know that water doesn't boil at 80 degrees Celsius. We know it boils at 100 degrees Celsius. Therefore, this one here is a simple proposition. It's just that its truth value will be false. That's important, okay? All right, let's continue. Number 3 says, it's not true that the moon is a planet. In this case, then, we'll see that this is a compound proposition. Why is that? Well, because here we have this not. Since it has a not, it's a compound proposition. Let me see. There's a small mistake of mine here. When I wrote this, I wrote moon with a lowercase letter, but it should be uppercase. All right, let's continue. Number 4. If you study, then you pass. Is this a simple or compound proposition? It's a compound proposition. So let's put a C. And here we can see the logical connector. Do you see it? Look, here is if. So, remember that if something, then something is a logical connector. Therefore, this is a compound proposition. The walnut tree has nuts. This is a simple proposition. So we mark it with an S. Number 6 says, a triangle is equilateral if and only if it has all three sides equal. In this case, it's also a compound proposition. So we mark it with a C. And as we can see, here we have the logical connector, which is if and only if. Sorry, up to here, right? If and only if. All right, let's move on to the next one. Be careful, as this one can be confusing. If you work, you will earn money. Be careful, if you work, you will earn money. This one here is also a compound proposition. Even though it may not seem like it implicitly, we can read it like this. If you work, then you will earn money. Even if the word then doesn't appear, we know that it's implicitly there. Again, if you work, you will earn money. It would be equivalent to saying, if you work, then you will earn money. Therefore, even if it doesn't seem like it, here it's as if there were a then, and here we have the if. So indeed, this is a compound proposition, right? All right, let's move on. Number 9 says, you are going to study or you will work. This one here, is it a simple or compound proposition? Well, actually, it turns out that this isn't even a proposition. Notice that it's a question. So I'm going to write here that it's not, since it's not even a proposition. Therefore, I can't classify it as simple or compound. This was actually a trick, to see if in fact you watched the previous video, where I explained that in detail. Well, let's go with the last one, which says, the cow is white or black. In this case, it's also a compound proposition. And here we have to underline the or, right? And before you leave, I'm going to give you these 3 exercises as homework. You have to do exactly the same thing I just did in the previous exercises. When you have the answers to these 3, put them down here in the comments. I'm going to give a nice big heart to the people who get it right. Well, that's all for today. See you next time. Take care and behave yourselves. Bye. Oh, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Bye.